Bookshop Author Series. If you don't know, we do this on the first Tuesday, mostly, every month. We've been doing it for a year and a half now, and I am so grateful that Becky reached out to us to get this program going again, because I love being able to highlight our Vermont authors. We're so lucky to have a East Middlebury Vermont author today, super close to home, which is great. So I just wanted to let you know that Ilsley is glad to be offering this. We will be doing it throughout the summer, so keep your eyes on our bulletins, and the Vermont Bookshop has a page dedicated to it as well. And I bet you Becky's even going to tell you a little more about who's coming up.
Oh gosh.
Look at me, I'm just throwing her under the bus.
I am the world's most helpless public speaker, so forgive me for looking at my notes. But I am Becky Dayton, and I own the Vermont Bookshop. Renee stole a lot of my content.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Love it. Love you for that, Renee. I would like to introduce Kellam Ayres, and I'm so delighted that she said yes. We had a little scheduling snafu, and she had been kind of hesitant about doing a reading when I first asked her. So with just a couple of weeks' notice, she was like, yes. So our author this evening is Ms. Kellam Ayres, who lives in East Middlebury with her husband Corey and their two beautiful children who live here in the front row tonight. Kellam works at the Middlebury College Library and is a liaison to the Breadloaf School of English and the Breadloaf Writers Conference. And please, if I get any facts wrong, fact check me. A graduate of the School of English and the Warren Wilson MFA program for writers, Kellam has received grant support and residencies from Vermont Arts Council and Vermont Studio Center. Her work has appeared in New England Review, Bowshares, Guernica, Ninth Letter, and other journals. Kellam will read for us tonight from her debut collection, which is here in the Cathedral of My Undoing, published by Gunpowder Press, and is the winner of the Barry Spacks Poetry Prize. And as I understand it, you win the prize for the manuscript. Gunpowder publishes it, and you get beautiful. I think I just finally figured that out about poetry. That's right. So please help me welcome Kellam Ayres. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all. I'm going to try to project my voice so you all can hear me. Hi everyone. Thank you so much, Becky and Renee. Thank you to the Vermont Bookshop and the Ilsley Public Library for hosting this reading series. It's an honor to be here with you all tonight. I'm so happy to be reading from my debut in the Cathedral of My Undoing. I started working on these poems many years ago. First when I was a student at the Breadloaf School of English, and then during my MFA program as well. And then I met my husband Corey, and we had two beautiful children, and we did not sleep again for about 4 years. So poetry felt really far away during that time, like for years and years, just really out of reach. And I remember running into the poet Michael Collier, and during those sleepless years, and he told me the advice that Ellen Bryant Voigt had given him when he was in the thick of parenting young children. And Ellen had told him to just write the poems in your head as you go about your work and chores and parenting. Just write the poems in your head. And Michael's telling me this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is that the only option for how to write when you have children? Because it seems really hard and maybe only something that like Ellen Bryant Voigt could do successfully. So I never really figured out how to write a poem in my head and keep it there all day, but I did appreciate the idea behind the advice, which is that poetry and our artistic selves aren't something set out apart from our daily lives, but they, like waiting in another room for us, but they are a part of us and within us amidst, all of our lives, the work and the laundry and the sleepless nights, and that's actually where the poetry lives, and all of the sort of beautiful and messy parts of how we spend our days. So that idea definitely at the time helped me feel more connected to the poetry world, which I was not for a number of years there, and it helped me to find my way back to writing. So this book is in 3 sections. and I'm going to read 2 poems from the first section and then some excerpts from the middle section, which is one long poetic sequence, and then 2 poems from the final section. So the first poem I'm going to read was first published in the New England Review, which I'm still very grateful for, and it's titled Ritual. A young couple fights in the street. Her name is April. She is drunk and sad. So is her boyfriend. He shouts her name and follows her across the street, but she doesn't respond. She sits on a bench next to a fountain that hasn't worked in years. 10 years spent looking down on Merchant's Row, its silent fountain at the bench. Only the voices change. Sometimes the man doesn't chase after the woman. Sometimes he drives off. Sometimes he shoves her and she hits him back. Sometimes he cries, or they both cry, and it's pathetic. The sound of 2 people crying in the street. We know these sounds, don't we? Old love. No good words for it. Sadness can't even come close. Living above a bar and hearing the end of one coupling after another, it becomes you. Sometimes the man bends at the waist with his hands in his hair. Sometimes the woman won't stop screaming. Sometimes they leave the bar and without touching, walk home. Years to learn the ways goodness drains out of people. Outside the window, there is nothing to see now, only the dark reflection of a figure looking down. Here comes a truck making a delivery, idling before dawn. It's the start of a new day. What about it can possibly be new? So here is another really cheerful poem for you all. It's coming at you. This poem is titled His Hand. His hand punched the fridge, an old 1950s model. Avocado green and stocky, hadn't worked for days. The freezer dribbling its melted frost onto the floor, the chicken breasts he pounded into cutlets, rotting under 2 inches of water. He'd broken the first 2 fingers, jammed his thumb, cracked the knuckle above his wedding band, and with no ice around, he ran the tender mess under the sink's cool tap and wept. The hand so badly swollen, the doctor slipped a pair of small metal snippers under the gold band and cut it off. It was all coming apart. He made sure of that. At home, his hand was wrapped tight, each finger taped to the next for support, as if one broken thing can be made whole by another. So the middle section of this book consists of a poetic sequence of 15 poems, and I'm just going to read a handful of them. The poet Carl Phillips talks about how if you are going to read a poem with multiple sections, you have to let the audience know ahead of time how many sections you're going to read, because most people expect around like 3 sections, but if you don't warn the audience and you read 1, 2, 3, and then you go to 4 and maybe 5, people start to panic because they feel like they're never getting out of there, and they're just going to keep reading poems until everyone has collapsed. So fear not, I'm just going to read, so it's 15 poems long, but I'm just going to read the first 2 poems, and then we're going to jump ahead to read, I'm going to jump ahead to read 3 in the middle, and then we'll read the final poem. And these poems are all less than a page long, so they're not too long, and they're also not numbered, so I'll just briefly pause between each of them. The title of the sequence is Language of the Dream. And my hope in writing the sequence is that it would read a bit like a short story. It's about the arc of a romantic relationship, but I also sort of hoped also about the act of being seen or not seen. There's a lot about dreams in there. A lot of animals make appearances, because this is Vermont. I tried to work on rooting the poems in both like a very specific, grounded, rural place, while also sort of often trying to let them float off into the ether, into these kind of weird dream spaces, which can sometimes happen when you're in love. So, language of the dream. Unseen, although she'd been here before, tracks in the mud, in the snow, the bobcat's den nearby. But what did we really know? Quick-footed, tail bobbed, ears at attention. Some called her lynx or catamount. They didn't know her, but no one could call her a menace. Unlike the bold foxes darting through our yard, or the fishers who ravaged our chickens. She hunted rabbits, mice, voles, until we imagined her muzzle turned red and she licked her lips clean. How does she sleep at night, curled in her den? A rocky outcropping or a fallen, hollowed out tree, nose tucked into her paws like any other cat. She is better than us. She will never question her desires. Busy at dusk and dawn, a brief union during mating season, then apart the rest of the year. The males alone, the females with their young. Our girl leaves a single line of tracks. No young, not yet. We require so much more, don't we? Her secrecy became an ache, her solitude an affront. And so, what we must imagine. Under the moon, the bobcat searching for a mate who will be fleeting as the last of the winter's snow recedes from the fields. In the diner, it was so hot, my thighs stuck to the booth's plastic cushion. Shades drawn, menus fanning at every table, the waitstaff ready to drop. I stared plainly at you, 2 booths away, as if in a spell. Sat with my juice, 1 egg scrambled, a piece of rye, and a section of the local biweekly. And when you caught me looking, I smiled with a certainty that didn't make much sense. You were unlike anyone I'd ever seen. I recall what came next like a fever dream, a wonder at your approach, your hand reaching to touch mine, your name, your eyes, a cash register, stacks of glassware, gallons of cold milk, a platter of bacon passing by, breakfast sandwiches wrapped to go, someone setting up an extra fan to push the hot air around a little faster. We dragged twin mattresses onto the floor, fixed the wool blankets and pillows on top, planning out all the wrong things once again, and pulled each other down on the pile. You left with the sky still yellow with dawn. I dreamt of mountains, of hiking and trying to grab your hand just out of reach. I was alone to dismantle our evening, haul mattresses back onto frames, fold blankets, recall your body. I wrote a letter to you in the language of my dream, lost in the alpine region, clouded in by storm. The terror of this one wrong decision, to no longer see you among delicate moss and brush, than to lose you in low clouds. It's the time of year when we hurt ourselves. The landscape changing too suddenly. The once pungent smell of manure replaced by nothing. Stillness. Corn plowed down, gone to market. The sad air we breathe despite ourselves. I said goodbye to the shallow holes where I pulled potatoes with purple skin that fit neatly in the palm of my hand. The black flybite on my arm has been worried over so much it bleeds. The cat scratches himself raw under his chin and pulls out his fur, grabbing hold with his mouth, tugging and tugging until it's set free. Rising from bed, I see the evidence in piles. The wisp of gray fur sticking out of his mouth. The decimated garden just outside the window. I stood on the same square of linoleum for hours, days, medicated dreams so vivid I'd wake believing it was true. That we lived behind the counter at the DMV while I waited in a line twisting around the bright room. You'd rise from under the counter, slide your arm around another woman, look at me and recoil. What did you think I'd do? Throw something or scream out? I waited so patiently. In my dreams it was summer, but I wore a dark wool suit and walking shoes. My cheap black heels tucked into a briefcase. Everyone else with their bare legs. The men wearing linen shirts. No wonder I was so uncomfortable. No wonder the air never seemed to move, despite the old metal fan in the corner. Tired world. Tired dream. I was only a dozen feet from you, but my number is never called. The photo machine hasn't worked for years. I'm to return tomorrow and wait. I'm not beautiful like the woman in the laundromat who sits with a cup of coffee near the window. At the Suds and Soap, I drink beer and sort my clothes while she writes in her notebook. I stare at her, how easily she sits with her coat on, one hand still covered by a glove. In a hurry, perhaps, to fix something into words. Or cold, as I am all the time. No, she seems to be utterly at peace. The thin winter light resting square on her, and outside, drifts of snow. She knows better. She is lovely, so she must know you can't change a man the way the snow changes the landscape, the new dusting covering the old. I notice everything these days. Children sliding their boots down the sidewalk, blowing dry flakes from railings like dandelions. The soft squares of dryer lint in the wastebasket. The broken quarter machine with the handwritten sign, "Need change, go to bar." All of it short-lived, of course. Snow, lint, things out of order. I begin to think she has never known pain or love. These days I wish for a way to cover almost all of my face. If someone cared to see me, they'd have to look straight on. In any case, I'd like to change. Have another drink. No longer be the same. So, thanks, Sawyer. I got 2 thumbs up from Sawyer. Just 2 more poems. These are from the final section, and I chose to read them tonight because they're kind of summery, springy summery, which feels fitting. They're still kind of sad, but you should not be surprised by that. It's okay. Okay, so here's At the Drive-In. Summer nights spent at the Weirs Beach Drive-In in an old LeBaron convertible I bought for a song. I was no longer in love. I got some property, moved 9 sheep and a goat out of the old barn into a truck bound for a neighbor's farm. Sunk an axe into infested walls, pried up vile floorboards, saw the rubbish pile grow a story high and burn green when ignited, bright from years of excrement. In quiet moments at the drive-in, carnival hum could be heard nearby. Shouts and pings, and cars tearing out of parking lots. Always the smell of fried things, or the sweat on my shirt, the skin underneath starting to peel. I wasn't sure if I could keep the property. Couldn't hold on to anything in those days. One night, I watched a movie at the drive-in with a girlfriend, and at the end, when Gardner was about to say goodbye to Debbie forever, and they danced the fandango under the Texas night sky, my friend was so moved, she pulled the tobacco from her lower lip and began to cry. And how I felt. Could I even begin to comfort her? So thank you all again for being here and listening to these poems. I really appreciate it. This final poem is titled Backyard. The dog was so proud. I was drinking tea on the stone steps and working on my tan. He ran to me covered in soft fur, a small foot hanging from the corner of his mouth. The young rabbits had been placed in a shallow hole by their mother. Unwise to leave things out in the open. It's why I don't write you anymore. The mother shouldn't have built a nest with a dog nearby. But here, or next door, or across the street, what's the difference? Is it luck, then, that determines everything? I think that's what I've been needing to say. I cleaned up after the dog and buried the remains near the compost pile. I have so little to tell you. The tea has gone cold. The dog ate 4 rabbits. I can't possibly protect my heart from this world. Thank you.
They usually do, but it's up to you. You get to run the show.
All right. No, I'll take questions if that's okay. That's fine. Okay.
Sure.
We'll see about the questions.
Okay, I've already heard it. Only easy questions tonight.
What are you ready now?
Well, that's an easy one. Good job.
Oh, what am I reading now? Okay. Vermont poet Allison Prime has a new book out. What's it called, Karen? It's called
The opposite of loss.
Yeah,
Loss and its opposites?
loss and its antonyms.
It's antonyms. Yes.
We figured it out together.
I thank you so I know many Vermont writers. So Allison Prime's new book I have, and a lot of fiction. I mean, Carolyn Keebler's new book is out, which I've started. It's
fantastic.
Wonderful. Yeah, and then, you know, I open up the Breadloaf Library really soon next week, and so I've got all those piles of everyone will be coming first to the Environmental Writers Conference and the Translators Conference. So I've been sort of peeking at a lot of those books, and we also started last year. We started making available a couple dozen literary magazines, like first of editors and agents, or editors mostly, who are coming to the mountain like, Georgia Review and Kenyon Review, obviously we've always had New England Review up there, but then I thought, well, this makes sense to have anyone who's coming up who is editing in a journal should, we should have their stuff up there all summer and available to all the programs to browse. So that's also been really fun having all of those literary magazines coming in, getting those ready.
I think there's a question in front.
Oh, I think we'll do it. Renee?
I wonder, when is it that you decide you're a poet?
Oh my goodness.
David asked the easy one.
When do you decide? I guess I don't really know how do you answer that? I guess I think if you don't know any better, you just start writing some poems. I guess for a lot of people, that maybe when you're young, like a teenager in high school, and you read poems. Maybe you can put your hand out. And then I guess you keep writing them, and I think maybe the definition starts to change. And so for a while you're writing them without really knowing any better, and then you think, oh, maybe I'm not really a poet unless I publish my work in literary magazines, or maybe I'm not a poet if I don't have a book yet, or if I haven't done this or that, or if I haven't gone to this residency, or these people haven't invited me someplace. And I think, I think probably decided pretty early on when I was younger that I love poetry. And so I've been writing poems ever since, but with definitely some gaps in there, life events kind of intervening, and it wasn't always sort of top of mind or sort of accessible to me at different points in my life. So I feel like I've kind of come in and out. And there are times where I really didn't think I was much of a poet because I wasn't really writing poems, but I don't think that's probably true. I think if you're a writer, you are, even if you're not actively writing, because you're still taking it all in, for sure. I'm really nervous about what that might be.
You can always not answer it.
I know. Did anyone else besides
I was really interested in this break, several years of not writing. And I'm wondering, is this book mostly from before, or is it some of it from after? And has things changed, like your poetics changed since the break?
It's kind of a mix. I think a lot of it came before, but then there's this huge break, and then really kind of an identity crisis, trying to get back into it after years and going, who am I as a writer? What's my subject matter? And then it was sort of thinking maybe I just need to start over. And so I did sort of start over in a way, kind of starting fresh, because I was just having trouble merging the older poems with what I was started generating when I came back from not writing for a while. And then I started, as I just kept writing and writing, I started to find ways where I thought the new stuff could start to meet the old stuff, and then I sort of started to revise the old stuff, the old poems, and started arranging them and really writing towards what I already had. Because I'm typically a really slow writer, and I was like, I cannot get rid of all these poems. I will never get a manuscript length book if I get rid of all of these dozens of poems. So I did sort of have to find a way to write towards them. So it is kind of a mix of new and old, but also a little bit getting into the mindset of who I might have been, who was writing those poems like 15 or 10 years ago, which was sort of fun, because I felt like in a way it was a little bit like maybe a novelist where I was really kind of revisiting characters, and as opposed to really just kind of writing as it came to me. I felt like I was kind of checking in on old friends and kind of thinking about their storylines in a way. So. Well, everyone wants to know. What's your question, Fielding?
Ask him first.
Okay, what's your question?
Why were the things that you wanted to remember in your head sad?
That's what I was going to say.
outside of things like
Oh.
that. Yeah, why were they sad?
Oh, why were the poems
They were
sad?
happy.
Oh, could they be happier? I know, that's a good, it's true. Well, I think, I just thought the sad stuff was really moving, and sometimes it can be helpful to sort of write through, not that this is not memoir, and it's not like a journal, but, you know, there are things like, these sort of universal things like love and loss and sadness that you sort of write, it can help when you sort of write towards that. But it's true, I don't have a lot of really funny poems, but maybe, you know, maybe life can be fun and joyful and the poems can just be sad. Maybe that.
So, when you thought of one sad idea, you wanted to keep making more sad ideas.
That's kind of how it worked, at least with this book.
You wanted
Up the
to
next
keep,
one.
you wanted to keep brainstorming bad ideas.
Not bad, sad, not yet.
Sad, not bad. It started as okay, hopeful.
Gold star, parenting and
That's-
speaking simultaneously.